So today we will be discussing about examination of ear. So for examination of ear, we will divide it into physical examination and functional examination of ear. In physical examination, there is examination of pinna and surrounding areas, examination of the external auditory canal, examination of tympanic membrane, examination of middle ear, examination of eustachian tube, and examination of facial nerve. Whereas in functional examination, you will be talking about tuning fork test, in which the common tuning fork test we have to do is Rini, Weber, Swabach test, and absolute bone conduction test, and vestibular function test, for which we will check for spontaneous nystagmus, we will do fistula test, and some positional tests. So let's start with physical examination. So for examination of pinna and surrounding areas, we will first examine the pinna, the preauricular area, and the postauricular area. The postauricular area will include the examination of mastoid. So let's talk about examination of pinna. In examination of pinna, first of all we have to look at it, and the inspectory findings we will see on the lateral surface. So this is the lateral surface of the pinna, and the surface behind is the medial surface of pinna. So inspection of the lateral surface, we will check for size of the pinna, whether there is anosia, microtia or macrotia. There is absence of pinna, and sometimes the pinna may be small in size. So if someone asks you what is the normal size of pinna, then the appropriate answer would be it is equivalent to the middle third of the face. So if it corresponds to the size of the middle third of the face, then it is of normal size, or approximately the size of the nose. Then on inspection we have to see for the shape of the pinna. Check for abnormalities in the contour of the pinna and look for cauliflower ear. So the normal shape of pinna would be the structure with normal convolution and ridges present. So if all the normal structures are present, like helix, antihelix, tragus, antitragus, symbaconga, triangular fossa, cavum conga, lobule, if all the structures are present, then it is called normal shape. Then check for position of pinna, whether the pinna is low set, whether it is protruded or pushed anteriorly or posteriorly. So if you draw a line from the lateral canthus, see here, if you draw a line from the lateral canthus, then it should normally divide the pinna into upper 1/5 and lower 4/5. So if the pinna is below this line, then it is said to be low set ear. This is commonly seen in patients with Down syndrome. Protrusion or pushed appearance of pinna may be seen in cases of mastoid abscess or mastoiditis. The pinna is pushed forward and downwards. You have to check for acquired lesions in the pinna. So if there is any pseudocyst of pinna, some gouty or tophi present in the pinna, if there is signs of any carcinoma in pinna, or if there is generalized inflammation of the pinna suggestive of perichondritis, whether there is keloid in areas of piercing of pinna. Then let's move on to inspection of the medial surface. So this is the medial surface of pinna. In the medial surface, you have to check whether there is any swelling or cyst or presence of keloid in the pinna. Swellings and cysts may be congenital, may be benign, or sometimes malignant conditions as well. Then moving on to palpation of pinna. You have to look for raised temperature, which is generally seen in infective conditions like perichondritis or abscess. Then check for tenderness. For tenderness of pinna, you have to check tragal tenderness and circumduction of pinna. Then look for thickness of tissue, which is thickened in cases of perichondritis or cauliflower ear. If there is any collection, then check for fluctuation. Moving on to examination of preauricular area. So this is the preauricular area, which is located in front of pinna. So in the preauricular area, you have to check for structures related to ear as well as other normal structures that are present in this area, like in this case parotid and temporomandibular joint. So disease condition involving these areas may also present as swelling or inflammation in the preauricular area. In inspection of the preauricular area, check for any swelling or lymphadenitis in this area. Check for preauricular sinus, which is more common here. So the preauricular sinus may have varying symptoms or presentation. Here you can see the preauricular sinus with discharge coming from here, but no signs of inflammation. But in this case, the opening of the sinus is blocked and there is inflammatory process going on. So this is infected preauricular sinus. So in these cases, you may have to drain the abscess or collection first, and then on second stage you will have to treat the preauricular sinus per se. So other things you will find in preauricular area is preauricular skin tag and appendages. Accessory tragus may be found anywhere along the line of ascent, which is an imaginary line from the tragus to the angle of mouth or along anterior border of sternocleidomastoid. So the difference between preauricular skin tag and accessory pinna is preauricular skin tag will include only skin or muscular tissue, whereas accessory pinna will have cartilage in it. So that is how you differentiate between these two conditions. So here you can see accessory pinna is present. So on inspection of skin of that area in the preauricular area, you have to look for erythema, congestion of the skin, and any scar mark. Generally in preauricular area you will see the scar mark of indoral incision, which again in the preauricular area on palpation you have to check for temperature, tenderness, and confirm the findings of inspection. Now moving on to examination of the postauricular area or mastoid. So this is the area we are concerned about. This is the postauricular area. In inspection of the postauricular area, check for the postauricular groove. So this is the normal postauricular groove that you can see. So in this case, the postauricular groove is obliterated. So you have to check whether the groove is maintained, present, or if it is obliterated. In cases of mastoiditis, because of the inflammation, this groove may be obliterated. Sometimes in postauricular lymphadenitis or any infective lesion in the postauricular area, this groove may be partially obliterated. Then examine for mastoid fistula. So in the preauricular area you have preauricular sinus, whereas in postauricular area you have fistula, which is mastoid fistula. So this fistula is formed when the disease condition in mastoid erodes the mastoid outer cortex, and then the inflammation bursts out through the skin, creating a communication between the mastoid cavity to the external. On inspection you have to see for vesicles, if it is presence of vesicles in the concha and in the retroauricular groove. This is generally seen in herpes zoster. The other important thing you have to look for in the postauricular area is postauricular cyst, dermoid, or lymphadenopathy. So all these conditions may present as swelling in the postauricular area. and examination of skin of the postauricular area or mastoid region would include erythema and congestion of the skin, check for any scar mark, like in cases of postoral or Wilde's incision, which is given as shown here. So the postoral or Wilde's incision is given 0.5 centimeter behind the retroauricular groove. Or sometimes in cases of modified radical mastoidectomy, we give it 1 centimeter behind. But some surgeon may also give it in the retroauricular groove itself. Then coming on to palpation of the postauricular area or mastoid region. So in palpation you have to check for temperature, tenderness. In tenderness you will be checking for tenderness in the mastoid tip here at the attachment of the sternocleidomastoid over the antrum. You can also check for mastoid tenderness through the Simba-Konka. So you will look for any smooth feeling of this area. Normally the area would have creases and it is not so smooth and shiny. The skin overlying wouldn't be so shiny. So ironed out appearance is seen in cases of mastoiditis or subperiosteal abscess. Then moving on to examination of the external artery canal. So examination of external artery canal is divided into examination of external artery canal without speculum, in which you examine the external artery meatus and examine the cartilaginous part of the external artery canal. Then further on you will examine the external artery canal with speculum, which examines the inner part of the external artery canal, that is the bony external artery canal. So examination without speculum, you have to examine first the external artery meatus. So this is the opening of the external artery canal. So check for the size of the meatus, whether it is narrow or whether it is wide. Narrow in cases of recurrent otitis externa, which causes decrease in size of the meatus, or due to any trauma or infective condition which may cause stenosis of the meatus. Wide meatus generally in post-operative cases of MRM. Then for examination of the cartilaginous external artery canal without speculum, the pinna is pulled upwards and backwards while the tragus is pulled forward. So you keep a thumb in your preauricular area and pull the tragus anteriorly, and the other hand will be used to pull the pinna upward and backward, so the canal would be straightened. So in the cartilaginous part of the external artery canal, check for contents of the lumen such as wax, debris, foreign body, discharge or polyp, which will be present here. So here you can see wax in the external artery canal. Maybe there is some debris or foreign body may be lodged here. Here you can see discharge in the external artery canal. Sometimes you will see a live insect or foreign body present in the external artery canal, or polyp arising here in the external artery canal. So the polyp in the external artery canal may be arising from middle ear and coming out to the external artery canal, or may be arising from the external artery canal cartilaginous part itself. Then check for swelling of its wall. So if there is any swelling in the wall of the external artery canal or not. Example, in otitis externa or localized otitis externa, which is furunculosis, you will see swelling in one part of the external artery canal. Also check for any mass lesion suggestive of malignancy in the external artery canal. Generally those lesions would be irregular in shape, friable, and would easily bleed untouched. Then examination of external artery canal with speculum. This is used for examination of deeper external artery canal, that is the bony part of external artery canal. For this you use the largest speculum that can easily enter the canal without causing pain to the patient. That is the utmost importance. The size of the speculum should be the largest one that fits in the external artery canal of the patient without causing pain to the patient. So holding the speculum, this is the method of holding the speculum. You can hold it with one hand or you can use both your hands to hold the speculum. So generally metallic oral speculum is used for examination of the external artery canal. So then in examination of the bony external artery canal, you will look for presence of any wax, debris, discharge or foreign body, as you have seen in case of cartilaginous part of the external artery canal. So here you can see debris with fungal hyphae as well. So this is a fungal otitis externa or automycosis, and here you can see discharge in the external artery canal. Here you can see foreign body and sometimes inanimate foreign body like a bead here. In the bony external artery canal, the other things you have to look for is osteoma and exostosis. So you can check for differences between osteoma and exostosis. Osteoma is usually single, whereas in exostosis they are in groups, generally in 3 in number. Osteoma is seen in the outer part of the bony external artery canal, whereas exostosis is present near the tympanic membrane area. So exostosis is generally seen in surfers, where this is the reaction of body to the cold water entering into the external artery canal. So other things you have to look for is polyp or granulation in the deeper part of external artery canal. So polyp arising from the middle ear coming into the external artery canal, or granulations arising from the bony part of the external artery canal. So these granulations may signify some squamous or artichoantral type of external ear disease as well. Look for any benign or malignant conditions of the bony external artery canal. Here you can see there is destruction of the external artery canal bony part with canal cholesteatoma. So in the bony external artery canal deeper part, look for sagging of the posterior superior bony canal wall. This is seen in cases of mastoiditis, where there is periostitis and inflammatory edema in the posterior superior canal wall, which is related to the mastoid. Then comes examination of tympanic membrane. So in examination of tympanic membrane, you can either use speculum or you can use otoscope.
When examining the right ear, hold the otoscope in your right hand. Hold it like a pen balanced between your thumb and index finger. Extend your little finger and use this to rest against the patient's face. This means that if the patient moves his head, your hand and the otoscope will move with it, and the otoscope will not stab into the ear canal and cause pain. This is of particular importance when examining children. With your free left hand, pull the pinner gently upwards, outwards and backwards to straighten the external ear canal to allow a better view of the tympanic membrane. In children, pull the pinner down and back instead. Insert the otoscope into the external auditory meatus and inspect the canal for wax, discharge, inflammation and other abnormalities. Gently proceed down the canal until the tympanic membrane is seen. Move the speculum around to examine the whole of the tympanic membrane and identify the normal landmarks. This is a normal right tympanic membrane. On a normal tympanic membrane, you should be able to see the handle of the malleus, the light reflex in the anterior-inferior quadrant and the pars tensor. You should look superiorly to see the pars flaccida also. Gently remove the otoscope, continuing to observe the ear canal for any pathology that may have been missed on the way in.
Okay, then moving on. So this is position of your finger while holding the otoscope. So this is for right ear and this is for left ear. Okay, now so we come to the examination of tympanic membrane. Normal tympanic membrane is pearly white in color, except for pars flaccida, which is pinkish in color. The tympanic membrane is semi-transparent and obliquely set at the medial end of the meatus. Two parts of the tympanic membrane is pars tensa and pars flaccida. So this is the right ear and this is the left ear. Accordingly, the tympanic membrane is divided into 4 quadrants. So in case of right ear, these are the 4 quadrants. The vertical line is passing along the axis of handle of malleus and the horizontal line is perpendicular to the vertical line and parallel to the external auditory canal floor. So this would be the anterior-superior quadrant, this is the anterior-inferior quadrant, this is the posterior-inferior quadrant, and this is the posterior-superior quadrant. Now there is a newer classification of thirds of the pars tensa. So according to this, you divide the tympanic membrane into 3 parts. So this is the anterior part, this is the inferior part, and this is the posterior part. So each part would be around 33% of the area of the tympanic membrane. While examining the tympanic membrane, you have to look for the landmarks of tympanic membrane. There is pars tensa and pars flaccida. Pars flaccida lies above the malleolar folds. There is handle of malleus and umbo. There is cone of light in the anterior-inferior quadrant. Anterior and posterior malleolar folds. Lateral process of malleus. Annulus tympanicus. So these are the normal landmarks of the tympanic membrane. Examination of pars flaccida, you may see retraction of pars flaccida. So the retraction is graded by TOS into 4 grades. Grade 1 is a simple attic dimpling. Grade 2, the retraction is adherent to the neck of the malleus and the full extent of the retraction can be seen. Grade 3, part of the retraction is out of the view and there may be partial erosion of the bony outer attic wall known as the scutum. In grade 4, there is definite erosion of the attic wall with full extent of the retraction being uncertain because it is out of the view. So these are the 4 grades of retraction of pars flaccida. So other examination in pars flaccida or attic is you have to look for any congestion in the pars flaccida, debris, flakes or cholesteatoma in pars flaccida, perforation in the flaccida, or presence of granulation in the attic region. Then coming on to examination of the pars tensa. So examination of tympanic membrane, we have to check for the color of the tympanic membrane, whether it is red or congested, which is seen in cases of acute otitis media, whether the color is bluish, which is seen in secretory otitis media or hemotympanum. The color may be variable in this case, like sometimes you may see yellow effusion here, grayish effusion, clear fluid may be present, or sometimes blue effusion may be present. Sometimes white chalky plaques may be seen in the tympanic membrane. These are tympanosclerotic patches. So next, check for the position of the tympanic membrane, whether the tympanic membrane is retracted, as you see here in this case, or whether it is bulged. Okay, so these are the conditions you have to see. So what are the features that you see in case of retracted tympanic membrane? If the tympanic membrane or pars tensa is retracted, then there would be absence of cone of light, prominent anterior and posterior malleolar folds, handle of malleus is foreshortened, meaning it is apparently shortened. lateral process becomes more prominent. Mobility of the tympanic membrane is restricted. So these are the signs that you see in case of retracted tympanic membrane or retraction in pars tensa. So check for the general position of tympanic membrane, whether it is retracted, generalized retraction is there, or localized retraction in certain areas, mainly in the posterior superior quadrant. The tympanic membrane may be retracted and fixed to promontory in cases of adhesive otitis media. These are also known as plastered eardrum. In pars tensa, we have Sadé's grading of the retraction of pars tensa. Grade 1, there is slight retraction of eardrum. Grade 2, there is severe retraction, the retracted eardrum touching the incus or stapes. Grade 3, there is atelectasis, the tympanic membrane is touching the promontory, but it is not adherent to the promontory. Whereas in grade 4, it is adhesive otitis media. In those cases, the tympanic membrane is adherent to the promontory. Now, examine the surface of the tympanic membrane. In the surface of tympanic membrane, you have to look for any vesicles or bullae in the tympanic membrane. As you see here, this is bullous myringitis. Or you can appreciate tympanosclerotic patch in the surface.